In this episode of the narrative film, we will take a look at how an editor puts together a sequence. After the shooting of the film is complete, the post-production process involves taking the raw materials created during the shoot and shaping them into a final narrative. The decisions made to cut together different shots have a dramatic effect on how the narrative film is presented, even on the most elemental level. For instance, these three shots tell a different story than these three shots. The organization of these shots tell a different story than this organization from the same series of shots. It may be subtle, but it's the kind of decision that an editor must make very carefully. There are some basic techniques that are used to create a linear sequence. You will recall that a linear sequence attempts to disguise the cuts so that it isn't apparent that they are occurring. In order to do this, we attempt to trick the eye and the ear of the audience so that there seems to be a continuous action that is occurring when the cut is made. This is typically done with editing software similar to the program you see here. One of the most common techniques is to cut on action. Let's see how this is done. When cutting together these two shots at the door, the act of cutting from the young woman to the young man is done by creating the cut in the middle of the act of handing the letter. By doing this, there is a sense of resolution in the mind of the audience. The act begins and ends. The cut seems inconsequential. This effect can also be done with the simple act of cutting on something as simple as a head turning. The action of the head turning begins in one shot and ends in the other. This disguises the cut itself. A cut can also be disguised with audio. Rather than simply cutting from one character who has dialogue,
Wish there was some way I could do this job and stay here,
to the other character who has dialogue,
Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
which calls attention to the cut, many editors will allow the all-important reactions
Wish
of the
there was some way
characters
I
to
could do this
occur
job
while
and
we
stay
hear
here.
the other person's voice.
Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? There's hardly a chance you'd find an
The
opportunity
continuation
like
of the
this in our little town.
dialogue during the cut tricks the mind into believing that the action is continuing even though the cut was made. The three most common techniques in creating this effect are referred to as the J cut, the L cut, and the insert shot. The timeline typically divides the shot into the video on the top and the accompanying audio file on the bottom. When we put the clip on the timeline and place another clip next to it, we can drag the audio track back and the video clip forward, and as a result, there is an overlapping of the audio and the cut. When the cut involves an audio clip that continues into the next clip, it can be referred to as an L cut, since the configuration in the NLE is in the shape of an L.
Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? There's hardly a chance you'd find an opportunity like this in our little town.
You know what I'm afraid of?
A J cut is similar. However, in this case, the audio track lags backwards in the shape of a J.
There's hardly a chance you'd find an opportunity like this in our little town.
You know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid I'm gonna get up there and I'm not gonna like it.
The insert shot is often used when there is a particularly long line of dialogue. Rather than keeping the video track on the speaker for the entire shot, the editor will cut out some of the video and inset a reaction of the non-speaking character to introduce a pertinent reaction or some other nonverbal form of communication.
Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? There's hardly a chance you'd find an opportunity like this in our little town.
In the same way dialogue can create a sense of continuity, so too can a music soundtrack. The process of cutting together shots is often the process of finding a rhythm. This is where the soundtrack can help to reinforce the rhythm. Using the tempo of the soundtrack, specific beats, and emphasis used in the music can make a cut seem inevitable. This tends to work most effectively when cutting together a montage or following a nonverbal sequence. This episode introduced only the very basic editing techniques, but hopefully you now have a better idea of how the process of editing assists in the creation of a sequence in narrative film. We'll see you next time.